Through clairvoyance you see the details of the higher world: plants, mountains, waters, animals, and other inhabitants. In the subtle world exist diverse affirmations of the earthly world. Even a prototype of the seasons of the year goes through the consciousness of the subtle world. Therefore, images of plants, or mountains, or the surfaces of water are not foreign to the subtle world, though they are in a transfigured condition, of course. The heart that knows the subtle world knows flowers and mountains, snows and seas. Flowers thrive in a profusion of forms, and their colors are indescribably more complex and varied than the earthly palette. The snows are whiter, more crystalline, and richer than their earthly counterparts. Rarely do people see the highest spheres of the subtle world, but those who are worthy to behold the splendor of the mountains and seas of the subtle world and the radiance of its flowers can visualize the purity of the fiery kingdom. You discover a completely new, strange sphere. The colors at times may remind one of earthly colors, but their essence is entirely different. The oceans of earth cannot compare to the depth and transparency of the waters of the subtle world. The atmosphere resembles a rainbow, but its subtle colors are totally unlike the colors of earthly rainbows. The fish can fly, but their coloring has no equivalent in fish of earth, and the most luxurious feathers of earthly birds cannot compare to the plumage of the subtle world. The people resemble earthly people, but amaze one by the subtlety of their features and tissues. Such differences are striking to the human consciousness, and one must become accustomed to the vastness of variety. You feel through clear sensing how the supermundane world touches you. If somebody begins to complain that the subtle world is imperceptible, point out how very wrong that statement is. The wings of the subtle world touch people far more frequently than they are given to thinking. It is people themselves who brush off the invisible flies and the invisible cobweb. It is necessary only to pay heed to these contacts. People usually brush them aside as annoying gnats. What is it that is touching me? Especially subtle beings which approach you. One should not consider the manifestations of the subtle world to be extraordinary. Everyone possessing a refined receptivity can, under proper conditions, sense the presence of the dwellers of the subtle world. Children, and particularly sensitive people, feel the presence of nature spirits such as nymphs, mermaids, gnomes, fairies, or elves, for example. or of ghosts of deceased who still haunt the earth. On earth, people are constantly surrounded by subtle beings. Usually they do not notice them, yet at times they feel breaths of air and light touches, and on rare occasions will see so-called ghosts. But one must point out that apart from such external perceptions, every refined person senses inner tremors and is subject to nervous stimulation or depression caused by the approach of subtle entities. People are mistaken if they think that communion with the supermundane world can be accomplished only with the help of especially sensitive individuals. Of course, contacts through such people are the most obvious, but in truth, everyone is continuously influenced by the touches of supermundane dwellers. But also higher beings, especially the Mahatmas of the Brotherhood of Shambhala, exercise a targeted influence on humanity. Feel that. Do not let these energies, messages or signs sent from above fly by, unnoticed and unused. Influences from the supermundane world can be divided into three basic kinds. The first is influence over one individual. The second is influence over an entire group. The third are touches of the supermundane poured out over the entire humanity. This higher realization is not just a matter for the new divine science. Rather, every normal person as well can and must learn to open his heart and to perceive supermundane phenomena through sensitive observation in the middle of everyday life. In the near future, the study of the supermundane world will be intensified. Science will help, but also the people's consciousness will be more attentive to the manifestations of everyday life. People must be assured that attention to psychic manifestations is not superstition. It has been sufficiently indicated that superstition and prejudice result from ignorance. Now, it must be said that lack of attention to subtle manifestations is also an act of ignorance. One should strengthen the striving toward observation of the surrounding subtle phenomena. The eye and the ear must be made more acute, so that the link with the subtle world can be recognized in everyday life. It must be made clear that the subtle world is close to every being. Manifestations of the subtle world are like the finest cobweb. It can be torn, but the presence of something very subtle will be felt for a long time. Remember that the subtle world is revealed in very subtle touches. Science, therefore, must adapt itself to the subtlest manifestations. The most subtle can be perceived only with great attention. However, do not fancy anything that does not exist in actual reality. One should not fall into prejudice. Otherwise, a person will sense something that cannot be. Psychic hearing should be developed with the utmost honesty, and experiences truthfully recorded. Cognizance of the supermundane requires utmost honesty. There is no need to fall into self-deception and imagine what does not exist. Idealistic drivel needs to be replaced by sound reasoning. Perceiving the higher reality is only a first step. If you want to live the life of your heart, you must really participate in what is happening in the supermundane sphere. You are acclimatizing your soul to the subtle environment that is always present around you, but which you have ignored until now. In undergoing the education of the heart, we grow accustomed to the spheres of the subtle world, without noticing the fact ourselves. This happens not because of some sort of exceptional, miraculous phenomena, but rather through the minute sensations that the sensitized heart starts to discern. Little by little, we come to acknowledge that around us there exist a multitude of manifestations that the laws of elementary physics cannot accommodate. You place yourself right in the middle of the events that are taking place up there. At first, such a visit in the subtle world will flash out in the consciousness through a sensation of a sort of momentary absence, and later there will remain an impression of having visited someone, or even of having heard 2 or 3 words. At times there will be sensed the characteristic odor of a definite locality known to us, or a glimmer of people or a place will pass by. At the moment, it seems to me utterly impossible to participate in life in the world beyond during my incarnation on Earth. Start small and simple. The first steps towards this higher skill are exercises we have already discussed and practiced together. Attach your place of residence and work to the world of your teacher. Step before him regularly and have a conversation with him. In this way, you will become, over time, in spirit, in your heart, a participant in the events at this holy place. Our conversation would not be complete if we did not turn with reverence to the woman who knows to use the heart so much better than the man, for higher knowledge, for pouring out love, and for connecting with the spiritual world. That is why the leading role of women in the new era is the topic of the next video of our serious introduction to Agni Yoga. Let us end with an oath. We are striving to live a new life. We are striving to live the life of the heart.